Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we'll start with narrative structure. This lecture, inshallah, will introduce a very important and interesting concept of film. We will speak about what make a story, and we will speak about the structure for a film and how it's work. Here is the key ideas for this lecture. We will introduce what makes story, three-act structure, the hero's genre, and we'll speak finally the character and archetype.
In this slide, we will discuss what make a story. Mainly, we have a conflict and resolution, which mean what is the thing that the audience like, and what make the audience watch the film is there is an event that is happening, and the people want to know what will happen next, or there is a problem, and we want to know how the hero will antagonist, which is the hero, how he will solve it. Another thing is the equilibrium, disequilibrium, and new equilibrium. Here, what we mean by that? We have equilibrium is the stable, how we have a story which is start as a stable thing, then we have a process of disequilibrium, which mean there is, as I mentioned, there is a stable situation, then it's disturbed by some outside forces, like some person who came to destroy a relationship between two people, and problems start. This is we have an outside forces which will create disequilibrium, something stored by counter forces. The second equilibrium is similar to the first, but some fundamental change has been taken. The new equilibrium, maybe the problem solved and everything will be stable again. And this is the main idea in story. As all of us know, in mythic storytelling, the villain caused a problem. The bad person or the evil person, he will cause problem, which will disrupt the equilibrium. Whilst the hero, he will came and he will resolve the problem. Often, for example, there is a princess and the villain people will come and they will make a problem for that princess, and the hero the hero will came and will save the princess. This is a simple event that happened when the hero came and he would try to save the princess. For example, he in the narrative, the hero will counter enormous number of obstacles he need to overcome, a lot of obstacles and problems. Then we will reach the resolution where we solve the problem, and everything will go to a new equilibrium, a safe, a balanced story, and a happy ending, for example. Another thing which is very simple, we have a beginning, middle, and end. The narrative is organization of structure, which can be a cause and effect chain, one event follow by another event, which will motivate the action to people to watch it. For the beginning, mainly the stories will start with as a stable, as I mentioned. The middle, for example, there is more action, conflict, there is a central question there. There is the development part, the conflict, for example, we have a war or we have a fighting. Then we'll go to the end. We will the filmmaker, the writer will have a specific event there, which is showed the audience that the film is end. When we speak about the filmic storytelling detail are not necessarily revealed by the order they happen. For example, in a murder cemetery, a murder happens at the beginning of the film, which is identify the murder. Is never revealed until the end. We don't know who make this problem. At the end, for example, we will know who make all this trouble, because we want to make the audience watch the film, and we want them to guess, and therefore they, at the end they will know what is happening. This is a simple way to know what make a story. Later on, we will go to more detailed structure and professional one. We should follow it to make a story. Here we have a diagram which will help us to understand narrative structure. Here we will introduce the three act structure. As you can see here, we have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. In Act 1, we have the setup, the catalyst, and the beginning of first turning point. The Act 2, as you can notice, this is the longest act in the film, which include the development part and the beginning of the second turning point. Act 3 contain the climax and the resolution. In detail, we will discuss all these parts and we'll have definition for each point. To start with Act 1, which is the setup, we will identify the catalyst, which is an event or an action which participate for the first turning point. What do we mean by that? There is an event which upsets the existing order of the story. It will turn the stable world of the protagonist upside down. There is a problem happen there, and we will notice. This is the catalyst will prepare the audience to the first turning point. Now we want to know what is the first turning point. The first turning point is a moment or a decision that are this is something for our main character, which is our hero in the story. We will focus on the protagonist. The protagonist mean hero. We will focus in his problem or specific object. Audience here want to know what will happen next. Will the hero will be able to accomplish a goal or he will fail to achieve this goal? The first turning point is about turning the action around a new direction. You will notice the story will start as a peaceful, everything is good. Then we'll have the first turning point will change the direction of the story, will go to new direction. Here we will raise the central question of the story. Later on, I will define what is the central question. And also in the first turning point, will help us to push the story into the next action. Again here, the first turning point will raise the stake and provide a different focus for the action. Here we will know, we will go to an example later on for a film and we will analyze what is the first turning point to make the idea clear for you. The central question in any film, we are representing a specific conflict. It could be inner or and outer conflict, and it could be social conflict or relational conflict. Later on, also we'll describe in detail kind of conflict. A central question. We have an example about central question from specific movies. We can define them. For example, a central question for a film Legally Blonde. Now that she was gained entry to Harvard Law School, will Ellie will be able to win her boyfriend back? This is a central question, an example for representing inner and outer conflict. Another central question for Legally Blonde film as an example, will Ellie be able to overcome blonde prejudice, which is a stereotype that are be taken seriously for her intellectual abilities? This is an example about a simple central question that are happening in the story. Um, Now we are in act number 2, which is the development part. This is the longest action. This is twice as the long as act 1 and act 3. What is happening here? The main character here will encounter a lot of obstacles and problems, and the hero here will try to achieve his goal, and he wants to reach specific destination. He might be solving a crime, or he will go in a very complicated way. Here, the obstacle of the protagonist to overcome from the main dramatic action of the story. He might have crisis, climax, subplots. He have reveals of a fortune, or he or she can face a difficulties and or complications will happen here. In the development part also, we will have the beginning of the second turning point. In the beginning of second turning point, we will have the action again will go the turn of the action around again to a new direction. This, if you remember the second turning point, which is happening at the end of Act 1. Here at the end of Act 2, we have the second turning point. The audience are watching a development part, which is the hero is running for to achieve his goal. The, we need to push the story again to a new direction. We have to make second turning point, which turns the action around a new direction again. Here may come after the protagonist darkest hour. It might seem that our hero will have a darkest hour. There is no hope. He cannot achieve his goal, and then suddenly something happen will help him to achieve his goal. He might face limited time to achieve his goal. He might be very sad, and there is no solution. Then we will give him hope or something to help him to seed up the action also of the narrative structure. Will give us a new sense and push the story toward its conclusion. Now we are going to Act 3. We have a climax and later on the resolution. Climax, this is the end of the story. We call it the big fish. Mainly or mostly in the most of the film, here we have a life and death struggle where the hero, protagonist, and the antagonist will meet together and they will fight. We have a final battle with the antagonist where the inner and the outer struggle conflict will come together and we should solve it here. A climax is a moment where the problem is solved and the central question is answered, the crime is solved, and the enemy is overcome. Here we will have a big and important moment, and where we have gunfight. It could be gunfight or any other fighting type. Finally, the resolution. The resolution is very short. It will tie up any losses, ends plot-wise. He will restore the orders. For example, the rewards are presented. The lovers will get married. This is very short. And here the audience will know it's a few minutes and we will understand that the film finished, and I hope it's clear for you here.
Dear students, you can go to page 15 in your document, the Word document, and you can follow the table there, which explain an example for the three-act structure for Legally Blonde film. And there they give you an example for each part of the three-act structure. For example, the setup, the catalyst, the first turning point, the central question, the second turning point, and the climax and the resolution. And it will be there very clear to you, which will explain the example very well, and you can understand in each action what is happening. You can read it there. Now let's move to the other stories element that we should consider while we are writing narrative structure for a film. Here we have protagonist and antagonist, the most important character in any story or in any film. I have been mentioning the protagonist antagonist while I'm describing this three act structure. Here we should go and define each one with few details. The protagonist is the central character in the story. Generally, it's a synonym for a hero. Protagonist mean hero. This character will drive the plot and typically change the most based on what he or she encounters. The term comes from a Greek meaning which means the first actor. Protagonist is the main hero, is the main character, which is the hero, where all the audience for the film will support the hero, and we will feel what he feel, and we will be supported what he ever doing in the film. The antagonist is the character. It could be one character or group of characters of the story who represent the opposition against the heroes or the protagonist. And in the classical style of a story, whether when the action consider of a hero flight, a villain, the two can be regarded as the protagonist and the antagonist respectively. The antagonist, they are people who will be against the hero. They will play the evil part. They are the people who are not good, who will fight, who will make a lot of problems to our hero inside the film. Here we have a type of conflict in any film. There is a main conflict in the central question. The film could speak about inner conflict or social conflict or relational conflict or situational conflict. We will describe each one of them. This is a very important point here. It could be a short answer question or very important. For inner conflict, this is a conflict within the character. We call it a moral dilemma. A character here are dealing with an inner trauma, a character facing inner demos. He will, for example, try to overcome a weaknesses or a failure, something inside the character. يعني في هنا مشكلة داخل الشخص، ممكن في عقل الإنسان، يعني هو متعقد من شيء معين، الفيلم يحاول يحله، أو في عنده عقدة نفسية، أو في الماضي صار له موقف ومأثر عليه وكيف يتغلب عليه. الانر conflict. Social conflict, this is something in the society, the conflict between our character and the society, or character and individual against a group in the society. ممكن هنا يكون social conflict شيء في المجتمع، في فكرة في المجتمع البطل يحاول يغيرها، يحاول يتغلب عليها. Then we'll go to relational conflict. This is conflict between the character. We have a hero and villain, men versus women in romantic comedy. ممكن relationship here we have love story, or we have a friendship story, or the good people and bad people and how they solve the problem. Finally, we have situational conflict. This is a character against other forces or nature or fate. It could be here a person is having, a character is having a problem with the nature. ممكن يكون بركان، ممكن يكون زلزال، ممكن في خطر معين في الطبيعة، وفي عندنا كاركتر البطل يحاول يتغلب على شيء يحدث مصيرهم مثلا، أو مثلا مرض معين يواجه البشرية وكيف هم يتعاملوا معه. Other story elements that we should consider while we are writing any narrative structure is shelving and reincorporation. This is an idea or an object which introduced seemingly randomly early in the film, which is forgotten about it and then later reincorporated into the narrative in some important way. For example, it could be a gun that are revealed in the beginning of the story in a small action, then it will be brought out and will be used to shoot someone at the climax of the film. When we are writing a story, we should have this element. ممكن it could be an idea، ممكن إن في شخص خبر شخص فكرة معينة والممثل أو البطل ينساها، بعدين فجأة في الكلايماكس يتذكر هالشيء، يتذكر العبارة وتفيده في حل المشكلة. أو ممكن يكون object، يعني ممكن في بداية الفيلم نحن نشوف البطل يفتح الدرج في الكبت ماله ونشوف في هناك مسدس أو whatever، بعدين في الكلايماكس في نهاية الفيلم هو بيروح يستخدم المسدس هذاك عشان يقتل شخص أو whatever. Another element that we should consider while we are writing a story is foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is an event or an action or something symbolic inside the film which will act as a portent of a later important event in the film. It will prepare the way for the audience so that important event in the film do not appear from nowhere. This is something will it could be something symbolic, which will act later which will work for a later action or an event in the film. This is will prepare the way for the audience, that the audience will know something will happen, and we already prepare for it because there is nothing in the film will appear like that nowhere. Everything should be prepared. Here we will speak about subplot. This is a very important, which we call it secondary plot, which will work with a parallel or support with the main plot that we have it in our film. This will can add a dimension to the main character to fill in an important details or an important to the main plot line. Here we should have a subplot. This will provide a contrast, or it will be like a commentary on the central plot. This is will we will deal with supporting character. It could be a romantic subplot with a relationship between the leading character. Maybe we have a hero who is having a conflict with the society. Then we have a subplot that this hero will be in love with another with a woman from that society. This is will consider as a subplot in the film. This is very important that to have it in the film. You can find in the lecture, as I just mentioned, two examples: a Star Wars film and Legally Blonde. And this is Legally Blonde and Star Wars. It's explained, as I mentioned, in lecture in page 13 in your lecture, in in a table, and you can follow the three act structure of this film. Here we are in the hero's journey, the 12th stage. We'll speak about model that are used by Hollywood scriptwriters today and made famous by George Lucas in the Star Wars trilogy. This was originally devised by Joseph Campbell in his book Hero with the Thousand Faces as a narrative genre common to all methodologies across all cultures, where here we have 12 stages. Narrator, scriptwriter can follow to have clear structure in terms of three act structure and archetypes. The genre here starts about the heroes are introduced in the ordinary world where they receive a call to an adventure, and they are reluctant at first, or they are refuse the call, but later they are encouraged by the mentor to cross the first threshold, and they are entered to a special world where they are encounter test alien and enemies there. Then they approach an enormous cave, crossing the second threshold, where they are endure a superior ordeal. Later, they take position in their reward and are pursued the road back to the ordinary world. They cross the third shoulder experience to restrictions and are transformed by the experience, and they are returned with the elixir. This is all 12 stage about the hero's genre. Archetype are very important model, important element in this lecture. We will identify what is archetype. Archetype are recurring character type and character relation that we are familiar with the form of myth and fairy tales. Archetype is the relationship between the characters inside the story and what kind of characters we have. Being able to identify the archetype and the way in which they are used within narrative is extremely useful and important to understand and analyze the function and purposes of the character in the story. When we have a narrative structure, we build up, we create those characters inside the story, and we should follow the archetypes here to know how can we make a character inside the narrative structure. Let's start with hero, alias, enemies, mentor, and the other archetypes.
A hero is literally someone willing to sacrifice his or her own needs on behalf of others. Hero is our most important character archetype inside our film. The hero represents a person in the narrative structure who have a journey of someone who will overcome both internal and external conflict and obstacle to become a complete person who is really willing to sacrifice something of him or herself on behalf of the ideal or the greater good of the group, for example, the family, society, friend, or a country. He, he will he will face a lot of problems to reach the benefit for the society or the family, country, or friends. He will sacrifice his own life to save other people. The hero is the strongest point of identification for the audience. Also, there can be a varieties of a hero, like willing and unwilling hero, anti-heroes, group, or loner-oriented heroes. The most important thing in the film, we can notice ourselves when we are watching film. We will be with the hero, our emotion, we will support him. If he's sad, also we'll feel sad because this is important role that of the important role that heroes are played in the film. Another type of archetype is ally. They are the character who aid the hero on his or her quest. These people who will help the hero to achieve what he wants or his purpose. Another type is enemies. Enemies, these characters actively block the hero on his or her quest. Sorry. And those characters we will be against the hero. He will block him. They will make problems for the hero to not achieve the goal easily.
Mentor is an important archetype for any film. In Mentor, we have mentor is a positive figure who aids or train, teach, and protect the hero. Often he's an older than the hero, for example. The main mission for mentor in the film, they act as a guiding for the character, for our main character, the hero. They give the hero gift, or they can help them to achieve their goal. They could give him a sentence or a piece of an advice, and our hero can remember this sentence and use it, or the advice and use it. An example about mentor in many films, like an easiest example is the role of Alfred in Batman film, and also the role of Fairy Godmother in some specific film. And also another example for that, the character M in James Bond, where she helped James Bond in his film. You will notice in different kind of film that you are watching, you have in most of the film they have mentor, which play a positive role for with the hero. Here we have an interesting type of archetype, threshold guardian. These are secondary character who get in the way of the hero at each gateway to a new world. They are lucky thugs, sentries protecting the villain's fortress, They are preventing an investigator from finding the truth. They are supporting the villains. They will be like playing a role to protect the villains, and they will prevent the hero to find in his way to find the truth. Herald is also another type of archetype. This character here, who might issue a challenge or announce a coming or significant challenge. We will call this one the call to an adventure. He is a character who will announce significant change or something are coming, like the danger is coming, or he will call the other characters inside the film for this significant change in the film. Shapeshifter is a character whose nature is elusive, or who changes from positive to negative force in the hero's world. They might seduce and betray, for example, Femme Fatal, or change from an ambiguous or indifferent loyalty to an ally. You can notice in some films that we have people who are at the beginning they are support the the antagonist, and later they will change their position, and they will be they will be support the hero. Here we have an example from Harry Potter film. Another example, another type of archetype is shadow. Here they represent the energy of the dark side of villains and antagonists, the enemies. These challenges, this character challenging the hero. They give him or her a worthy opponent and are sometimes life-threatening foes. These kind of characters appear in the story to make difficulties or challenge the hero. They might sometimes try to kill him, or being a kind of a threat to the life of the hero. This is the dark side of villains and antagonists. Finally, we are intriguers. This character who often provide comic relief to and fun laughter. They can relieve tension after substantial episode. Here we have an example from a character Palette from Legally Blonde. She making fun and funny situation, which help in narrative structure in archetype. Finally, you should go to page 22. There we have different kind of steps for example, Star Wars film or Legally Blonde, and the hero's journey, how it's work, and exactly link it to a film. You can watch Legally Blonde, and you can notice the ordinary world, call to an adventure, and meeting with the mentor, then cross the first threshold to the special world. Then they have approached the superior order and many steps over there, and I hope it will be useful for you people. And here the most important things to know: three acts for narrative structure, archetype, definition of archetype, the archetype you can state them, and type of conflict, protagonist, antagonist, and other element that you consider in story. And finally, I hope everything is clear for you. If you have any question, you can ask. Thank you very much for listening.